Generally, viewing the world in strictly black and white is a bad thing. Well, metaphorically, we mean no hate to our colorblind fans. Unless, of course, you live in the Star Wars universe, where you're either a good guy or you've given in to the dark side. As we get ready for Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, many fans have questions about Rey's parents, hoping her lineage could give some clues to what kind of hero or villain she could become. But it's entirely possible that where Rey comes from could turn out to be less important than what you might think. Right now, you're probably thinking that we already know the answer to the age-old question, who are Rey's parents? After all, we got the feeling they might not be the nicest people in the world when they abandoned their daughter on Jakku. But hey, maybe there were some extenuating circumstances. But it's a question which the movie The Last Jedi provided an answer to. Kylo Ren described her parents, the people Rey has been longing for her whole life, as filthy junk traders. Way to show off those social skills, Kylo. Apparently, his vision skipped the part where Rey was also a filthy junk trader. Until very recently, even Rey admits her parents were nobody, yet people have questioned Kylo's recounting of events. Could he have been purposefully misleading her? What a terrible thing to accuse the reasonable, bright, and even-tempered Kylo Ren of! But let's talk about why everyone's so caught up on who Rey's parents are. It's not just because Rey tried to use them as an excuse not to go on cool, fun outer space adventures with Han Solo in The Force Awakens. Although, come on, Rey, live a little. It's because they believe knowing whose Rey's parents are will let us know what kind of person Rey is going to be in the future. When it was revealed that Darth Vader was Luke Skywalker's father, it made fans wonder if our hero really could turn to the dark side at some point. And when the new trailer showed a darker version of Rey than we're used to seeing, the whole parent issue popped up again. Were her parents not just nobodies, but evil nobodies? The worst kind of nobodies. If so, could this mean Rey will turn to the dark side, possibly doing the old switcheroo with Kylo Ren at some point? It might sound crazy, but let's not forget that "her family is bad" was used to throw away 7 seasons of character development for Daenerys Targaryen in Game of Thrones. Do the gods hold their breaths and flip a coin when a Skywalker's born? In a way, it boils down to the age-old debate of nature versus nurture. Was Anakin Skywalker simply born destined to go crazy and fall into a volcano, or was that due to some choices he made along the way? In retrospect, taking out all those younglings was a morally dubious decision. And that's the thing with many choices in the franchise. They're either really terrible or really good, without much moral ambiguity in between. Would Luke have still felt the allure of the dark side if he wasn't a Skywalker? In the past, the people who've questioned the merits of the Jedi Order have been portrayed as evil. We're not quite Siths, but we don't think it's crazy to say the rules of the Order were a little harsh. Don't feel things like fear or anger, and definitely no fall in love or get married. The Order taught that life is precious, but in many ways forbade its members from doing things most of us consider living their own lives to the fullest. We are only humans, and the gods have fashioned us for love. That is our great glory and our great tragedy. Holds true even in a universe far, far away. And while the Jedi Order's rules worked out for quite some time, they are really and truly gone now. Luke has faded away, and all that's left is a few rotting books on the Millennium Falcon. But is this necessarily a bad thing? Was the Order too idealistic, and did it ignore too much of human nature? If so, where does that leave our hero Rey? No, we don't think the end of the Jedi Order is a fast pass for Rey to turn to the dark side. It's time for the old black and white morality of the universe to evolve. Is it so crazy to think that a Jedi should be able to have emotions and peace? Passion and serenity? We definitely see the benefit of being able to control your emotions. Yeah, we're looking at you again, Ben. But pretending humans don't have them doesn't seem sustainable. Anakin Skywalker was a character filled with fear and anger for some incredibly valid reasons. His own mother, Shmi Skywalker, was tortured at the hands of Tusken Raiders, and Anakin had to watch her take her last breath. The Jedi Order's reaction to his feelings was pretty much to tell him to knock it off, and that he'd never be a Jedi with all those pesky feelings. And then Obi-Wan told him he'd be a lot prettier if he just smiled more often. Okay, we made that last part up, but you get our point. On the other hand, Emperor Palpatine validated Anakin's emotions. Now, we're not saying Palpy's a good guy, but it's not hard to see why what he was peddling seemed infinitely more appealing than being a traditional Jedi, at least from a certain point of view. And while being a Jedi who isn't evil but does experience basic emotions hasn't really been a thing in the movies, There's a ton of relevant lore in the books, and a whole lot more is being fleshed out in recent shows like The Clone Wars and Rebels. Ahsoka Tano may not have been called a Grey Jedi specifically, but she's definitely a more of the middle-of-the-road character compared to those who neatly fall into the evil or good categories. Grey Jedis walk the balance between the light side and dark side of the Force. They're not constrained by the Jedi Code, and they aren't inherently evil. Could the Rise of Skywalker see Rey becoming a Grey Jedi? She's had to face the allure of the dark side as her training, like when she had to deal with the creepy cave on Ahch-To in Last Jedi. Even Luke was called to the dark side right up until the very end. Ignoring your negative emotions or the dark side entirely doesn't seem to work for a lot of people, regardless of whether they're a Skywalker or not. But acknowledging that these things exist and still choosing to walk a different path seems like a more realistic way to live. Some members of the Jedi Order even considered Qui-Gon Jinn to be a Grey Jedi, since he didn't always fall in line with the Council's decisions. Although it's too bad this wasn't part of Mace Windu's character arc, it would have been great to see him address the Council like Nick Fury addresses S.H.I.E.L.D. in the MCU. And of course, there's also Jolee Bindo, who abandoned the Jedi Order and learned to use the skills of the dark side without allowing himself to be overcome. The Last Jedi writer and director Rian Johnson claims that when Kylo Ren talked about Rey's parents, he was sincere about what he was saying. He stated, in that moment, Kylo believes it's the truth, but while he's not lying, there's a chance he could be mistaken. Johnson has repeatedly said he wasn't lying, but he didn't say that he was right, and that's an important distinction. Maybe Supreme Leader Snoke messed with their minds. Who knows? But the fact is that Rey's parents could pretty much be anyone. And J.J. Abrams definitely added fuel to the fire when he said there's more to the story when it comes to Rey's lineage. And fans have definitely guessed pretty much every possibility out there. Is Rey a Wampa with a really good haircut? Is she the long-lost great-granddaughter of Obi-Wan Kenobi? After all, that could tie nicely into the new Disney Plus series in which Ewan McGregor will be reprising his role. Booyah! Sorry, just got really excited. But the more we think about Rey becoming a Grey Jedi, the more we can't help but think of a certain theory that at first glance seemed too crazy to be true. Of course, people have been guessing that Rey is a Skywalker forever, but this theory is a little different. Some fans believe Palpatine managed to obtain Luke's hand, which he lost during The Empire Strikes Back, and he used it to make a clone. Well, kind of a clone, since Daisy Ridley and Mark Hamill are pretty different looking. Palpatine could have been in the market for a new apprentice, or he may have wanted to use Rey as a vessel to accept his own consciousness at some point in the future. But either way, something went awry, like possibly two junk traders raiding his lab, stealing the new Skywalker and selling her to Unkar Plutt. If you've only seen the movies, this idea probably seems insane. But if you've read the books, it probably seems quite familiar. That's because in The Last Command, there's a clone made from Luke's severed hand, and his name is Luke Skywalker. Yep, that's Luke with two U's. It's futuristic. Anyway, the clone can do basically anything Luke can do, but inside he's pretty much mindless and acts as an extension of the mad dark Jedi Jorah C'baoth. Rey being a clone would definitely add an interesting twist to the nature versus nurture debate. Does nature still come into play if you are made in a test tube as opposed to the old-fashioned way? In the books, W. Luke Skywalker has all the sick lightsaber skills of the original Luke. This could explain why Rey was so easily and proficiently able to use a lightsaber in The Force Awakens. Instead of being surrounded by evil influences, Rey grew up isolated on Jakku, where life was hard, but she was at least free to develop into her own person. Her being a clone of Luke would also explain her connection to the Force, make the bond between her and Leia even more heartbreaking, and make her will they won't they with Kylo Ren pretty weird. But hey, getting weird with a relative is one of the less glamorous Skywalker traits, so that theory still works. Regardless of whether Rey's parents are a pair of junk traders or the severed hand of Luke Skywalker, her becoming a Grey Jedi could tie into her relationship with Kylo Ren. The Last Jedi established that there's some good in him, just like there's some dark inside of Rey. It's kind of like a yin and yang thing, and by teaming up instead of going at it alone, it's possible these two could actually find a balance, which has been missing in the universe for far too long. With Snoke gone, is Kylo Ren and the First Order the true threat, or is there something more out there? The Knights of Ren are neither Jedi or Sith, and it's possible they could come back for Rise of Skywalker with a scary new power that threatens both Rey and Kylo Ren. And let's not forget the name of the new movie, Rise of Skywalker. Who's Skywalker here? Of course, there's Ben Solo, who is Luke's nephew, and if the hand theory is true, then Rey is technically a Skywalker too. But some fans believe Skywalker could come to be the new, catchier term for Grey Jedi. Since the previous movie was The Last Jedi and featured the end of Luke, perhaps Rise of Skywalker refers to Rey walking a different path that's neither strictly light nor strictly dark. Luke definitely seemed ready to move on from the old ways, so it's fitting the new order would use him as a namesake going forward. He saw how the old ways led to him failing his nephew, and carried that regret with him always. The guilt and burden of tradition he carried may have made it so he couldn't see a way for the next generation to evolve. But hopefully, Rey will find a way to move forward regardless of where she comes from. What do you think the future holds for Rey in Star Wars Rise of Skywalker? Share your predictions with us in the comment section below, and then click on that subscribe button for more videos from us here at CBR. We'll see you next time.